10, ABC Goulburn Murray, Bronwyn O'Shea here with you on 1300 147 222. Our Hume region has a youth unemployment rate of around 16%, and I'm sure you've heard those figures before. It makes us one of the hotspots for youth unemployment in Australia. And I'd really like to hear your experiences this morning. Maybe you employ young people, or maybe you are a young person looking for work right now. What are the problems? What are the challenges? And importantly, what needs to change to get more young people into jobs locally? This morning, business leaders in Albury Wodonga came together to get the ball rolling on a 5-point plan for positive change to youth unemployment. Albury Councillor Kevin Mack was one of the conveners, and guest speaker Kathleen Newcombe, CEO of the Sarina Russo Group, an employment company, are both with us this morning. Hello to you both.
Good morning, Bronwyn.
Good morning, Bronwyn.
Really interesting to be having this chat today, because there's a text message here saying, are you joking? You just mentioned our youth unemployment rate, and the next sentence, you went on to the backpacker tax outrage. Make the youth get out there and pick the damn fruit like we did when we were young. Unbelievable, says Kath. So it'd be interesting to talk to you both about that a little bit more in this conversation. But first, tell me about this morning. Tell me about some of the aims that you had out of this business breakfast to get more young people into work.
Well, look, the breakfast was spawned from an article I actually read about Sarina Russo and the work she's done in the space of employment and youth employment. And I thought, as the then Mayor of Albury, that it could be an opportunity for us to bring both cities together as one, to create a youth-friendly city where we're enabling employment of young people, because I think employees don't have the patience they used to have. And my catch cry is someone gave them a start one day, and I think it's important for us as a community, as communities of interest, to come together and enable this to happen.
You say they don't have the patience they perhaps should have. What do you both hear from employers about their frustrations with employing young people or trying to employ young people?
Bronwyn, one of the first things that we hear from employers is that it's difficult sometimes to connect, that young people don't necessarily appreciate what it takes to be successful in the workplace as well. And so one of the things I love about this plan, which is developed out of the community group, is that one of the first points has been a focus on sharing knowledge. And that concept that employers can provide more information out into the community about what it means to work for them and their businesses, the skills required, the attributes required, and equally we can inform the youth about what is expected so that they can more adequately prepare. And that's really the heart of it, is connecting the two, because what we don't know, we don't know. And once we can introduce that knowledge into the mix, I think employers feel more satisfied and the youth job seekers are much more prepared for success.
We have a work experience student with us just this week. All kids who go through school at some point will be sent into a workplace to get a feel for what it's like out there in the real world, doing a job. Why don't they already know what's expected of them?
I think that one of the things that we see in the employment world is that we don't speak openly enough. Sometimes work experience can be very, very simple tasks. It might be just, okay, we're going to do the filing. They don't get into the nuts and bolts of what it takes to be a successful business. Particularly small and medium enterprise don't tend to share the challenges that they have, whether now a young person doesn't need to know all about cash flow requirements, but really what does it take to be successful. Equally, they often may have parents who haven't had that exposure, so they're not talking about it at the dinner table at home. And one of the things that really has come out of the community discussions here in Albury Wodonga is that importance of bringing parents to the table as well, literally, to be able to understand and talk about what the workplace is. So what is experienced in the workplace through internship or work experience is also reinforced at home.
You talked about a youth-friendly community and youth-friendly environment. We've just talked about some of the things we perhaps need to be clearer about with young people looking for jobs. What about for the workplaces? Do they have to bear some responsibility too?
Oh, look, I think there's always a safe bet that you take on a mature age apprentice or a mature age placement. There's always a safer bet that they will last the journey. But unfortunately, as it was alluded to by Kathleen, that a lot of young people don't know what's available. And it was mentioned this morning that young people have this skewed view that they leave year 12 and they're on $90,000 a year, a car and a house. But we don't tell them, but we're not open about what we earn as parents, and we're not open about what is out there and what this costs. So if you've got a kid on work placement in a small business, the reality is if you've got a small business, you must be loaded. But you're not. They're earning a wage, and they're just earning a yearly income that keeps them at the $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 mark, and they're taking enormous risks. I think it's about being open and transparent about that. And young people aren't stupid.
Yeah. You're not going to be the CEO on your first day.
No. But, you know, who knows, some of them might be. But look, there's a lot of opportunities. And the 5 plan was something that was worked on out of a workshop on the 22nd of April with five or six of our major businesses in Albury Wodonga. Some great examples exist in this community already that we can build on, that people aren't aware of, you know. Parents taking their young people to work on school holidays, their young people getting paid for that experience, the siblings lining up at the door. When am I going to be old enough to do that with mum or dad? I mean, that's real experiential learning. And I think that then gives them the sense of what a workplace is and how they can contribute to the bottom line of that business. And that's where businesses can open their doors. And there's been 3 or 4 major businesses at that workshop, which was prior to today, that committed to doing that. And that's part of our mentoring and our business engagement model that, you know, it's here already.
So I'm feeling from what you're saying as though the jobs are here, it's just a matter of better connecting those employers and those young people. Is that your sense? It's not so much that we don't have jobs, it's just that we're not matching it up well enough.
Oh, look, I think it's a perception and reality thing. And I think we don't, at year 6 and 7, we should be preparing young people for work. I think that really is it in a nutshell. We should be giving them the necessary information they require to formulate their strategy as they get older, because they're maturing earlier, and certainly the pathways are certainly there for them to go off into other areas of employment. The current policies of the Victorian State Government, they want every kid to finish year 12. Is that practical? There are some kids that will fall through the cracks. They should be our apprentices. They should be our bricklayers. They should be our plumbers. They should be our electricians. And from a policing perspective, the more young people that are actively engaged in employment or education, it makes our community a better place. And our community need to take ownership of that situation. It's not just the job of the police. It's not just the job of the legislators. It's a job of the families to step up to the plate, whether you own a business or you have a child that wants work, and to actively play a part making this city, Albury Wodonga, a youth-friendly city.
We are talking about getting young people into jobs. We know that the Hume region as a whole is a youth unemployment hotspot. It has one of the higher youth unemployment rates around Australia, and that's something that, as we're hearing about, was the topic of discussion at a business breakfast this morning in Albury Wodonga. There's a 5-point plan now about getting more young people into jobs, and we're speaking to a couple of the people involved. One, the guest speaker, Kathleen Newcombe, who's the CEO of the Sarina Russo Group, an employment group, and Albury Councillor Kevin Mack, who's also heavily involved in youth and community and policing locally. It's 28 to 11 here on ABC Goulburn Murray. So, 5-point plan, it sounds great. What's on it, and what are the major tasks ahead now?
Well, like Kathleen intimated, there's knowledge. Knowledge is gold, and it's power, and we need to share that knowledge with our employers, with our young people, with our families. We need to engage the media to share that message, spread that message. This is a community project. We need to engage the community where they live, and it's pretty important to use social networking and all the forums and platforms that we can to reach out to this current generation. And that was an issue that was discussed at this morning's breakfast. A bane of mine is the transport situation in regional Australia. Local transport is non-existent, and the reality is, how do people get around the city? How do they get around these 2 cities actively and look for work, or go to Headspace, or seek employment?
And how do people living beyond those cities do that? Even harder if you happen to live on a rural property.
Yeah. We're talking about very fast trains, and we're talking about very slow trains, but we're not talking about what's happening locally. Successful economies succeed because they have good infrastructure that works. And that's really the issue here. Young people don't need excuses. I don't disagree with what Kathleen said at this morning's breakfast, is that if people want to get somewhere and they're passionate enough about it, they'll get there. I get that, but transporting issue for our younger generation and our ageing generation. I think as a city, the Wodonga and Albury councils are currently in discussion. It's a discussion I started last year when I was the mayor of the city, about enabling a pilot to see if we can create a linear bus route through the cities that will service those needs. So, I mean, there's things happening. The mentoring component of this particular discussion, it's an important component for not just people in the community to mentor, but workplace mentors. People that are prepared to take these work placements, like you've had a work experience student here, and say, listen, when you finish here, have you got an interest in radio? How about you just come back, drop back on the weekends when I'm working, and we'll shoot the breeze, and we'll do some stuff that's probably not totally legal in terms of the radio world, but we'll make sure that you get to talk on the radio. How about that? Or we'll let you press the buttons. I mean, let's face it, we have work experience people at the police station, young kids at the police station. They sit there and fill out worksheets all day.
But this is the problem, and we talk about this in our office, and I hear every other person that works in a major workplace say the same thing. It's wonderful to have young people, enthusiastic young people, come in and do work experience, but the resources are needed to support that person, especially if you're talking about giving them some really clear ideas about what being an employee in that job means, and giving them meaningful tasks and meaningful insights. That's on top of your daily work burden anyway. So can we be a bit smarter about how we approach work experience?
And I think, Bronwyn, one of the things that came out of today was a commitment from participants at the breakfast to add to that through their own skill sets in terms of becoming mentors. So not relying necessarily on just the people who were hosting interns or work experience, but looking beyond that to, I call the trusted advisors, and the people that can navigate your way and work with you as a young person through those experience you might gain. And you know, it's wonderful to hear, and there were people filling out forms at the breakfast, potentially offering their services to do that and to engage with young people as mentors. So we can go beyond. We need to build a teams of people, in fact, in order to support and become the trusted advisors and navigators for young people to provide that support. And what was wonderful today, that came from within the community, whether that be chambers of commerce, groups, employer groups. You know, there were people lining up to support that sort of initiative.
So how hopeful was the room about turning around that figure of 16%?
Oh, look, we really need to work on the qualitative outcomes for our young people. Now, quantitative data is great. It speaks a number, it speaks a language of its own, but we need to provide quality engagement with businesses and young people and families. And we need to do it now, because as a community, we can make send a strong message to government and certainly to our young people that we care. And I think that's what it's about. It's about providing that environment where we nurture and we become that village that raises that child. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's not rhetoric. I know this is not rhetoric because three of the 5 points are already in train. So I understand what it takes to enable that, and I use that experience as a policeman and as a councillor to do that. And you need to be able to, you just don't do things because you think, oh, I've done that, been there, done that, walk away. You do things so you can gain that knowledge to do better things the next time. So no such thing as best practice, there's such thing as better practice. And we learn from our experiences and we share those learnings with our young people. And like I said, we have an ageing population, but there's a lot of people who retire from work that could become the mentors of tomorrow for these young people, and the young people that don't have necessary family supports, the disadvantaged kids. There's a lot of examples, L2P programs, there's a lot of programs where it has worked, mentoring does work, but who's got time to mentor? What a load of rubbish. Everyone has time if they want to make time. And I think that's the message. If you're going to be really conscious about how you change this, people need to change it for themselves, and that's the whole nation. Like someone said today, and I was quite taken aback by that, if you see a young person in the streets, say hello, how are you going today? Take a bit of interest in what they're doing, and maybe it'll pay off in spades. And, you know, simple stuff like that can make a difference.
It's been lovely talking to you both. Good luck in making this 5-point plan a reality and getting some young people into work. It
is a reality, Mom. What are you saying? I just told you that.
We look forward to it.
You need to let those young people on the radio occasionally.
It's ABC Goulburn Murray. You're listening to Councillor Kevin Mack and Kathleen Newcombe, who's been a guest speaker this morning at a business breakfast in Albury on that topic of getting more young people into jobs. jobs, and Kathleen is the CEO of the Sarina Russo Group, an employment group. Well, I want to hear from you. I want to hear about your experiences out in workplaces or with young people who are looking for jobs. You know, you've heard some of the ideas there about the things we could do better to make youth-friendly communities and youth-friendly workplaces. You've got some ideas of your own? I'm very keen to hear them. 1300 147 222 is my number.